Well, the wind and the light cooperated. Really beautiful scene back behind me here. And I first found this area last year, and I filmed some video of me walking through here and figured this would be a pretty cool area to take a photo as well, but it's a challenging scene. I knew that there'd be some reflected light bouncing off the wall to the left and illuminating the far edge of the right wall. And a little bit earlier, there was not that little slice of direct light on the floor of the canyon, and there was just like this nice glow where the light reflects onto the floor of the canyon as well. But I exposed 2 sheets of Provia, 2 sheets of Portra 160, and then a single sheet of Delta 100, and just kind of alternated between them just to try to get a little bit of an earlier glow and then a little bit of a later glow. But with canyons like this, the light very much runs on a schedule. So I was just taking a bunch of scouting photos yesterday, trying to figure out what time the glow was going to be at its best. And then today I got here ahead of the light, found a composition that hopefully works. Never really know until I see the actual film, but I think it'll be pretty decent. But found a composition, set up for it, just wait for it. I knew that at exactly like 11:50 or so is when my window of light was at its peak before the direct light started streaming into the composition. So feels great to expose some film. Now there's a tiny hint of high clouds up in the sky, and so I saw a little bit more of them off to the west earlier, back behind the Panamint Range. And if those continue to build in today, I have a location in mind to perhaps make use of some clouds. But if not, I'll probably just do a little wandering and maybe head over the dunes or some other canyons and see what else I can find. But feels great to expose some film, get things packed up, head back to my truck, make myself a delicious sandwich, and see what else I can find for today. But this is pretty cool. Well, several hours have passed since I exited that canyon and had some lunch. And I drove to an area that I scouted last year. There's this interesting bend to this river and some interesting salt along the shorelines, mountains in the background. And in the time since being in the canyon to coming here, the clouds have really built in. And so there's some high clouds streaming up from up and over the telescope peak there in the Panamint Range. And then if we point over here towards the east, you'll see that there's still some blue sky there. When it comes to clouds in Death Valley, sometimes they build in quite strong and then just snuff out the sunset. Other times they dissipate right at about sunset. But in any case, I have a composition set up here, and a kind of a moody sort of sunset might be nice. I mean, I get whatever I get, so we'll go with that. But a little bit of a reflection in the water there, curving line with the shore of the river, and then the mountains taper down there off in the distance. So we'll see what happens. But whether I'm able to shoot a photo or not doesn't really matter too much. I think it's just a matter of putting a composition on the scene. And what I'm really looking forward to is dinner back at camp. And that will happen regardless. So we'll see what happens. Well, that was a pretty decent show. It wasn't exactly as I was anticipating, but that's kind of the fun of it. There were some clouds that were building in pretty strong to the west, while the east was mostly blue sky. And even though it looked like there was a lot of clouds out to the west, the sun still found a way to poke underneath those clouds and illuminate both the foreground as well as the mountains. So it was kind of the foreground first, and then it was the foreground and mountains illuminated, and then it was just the mountains themselves. And I exposed 3 sheets of film on that, and it wasn't a strong enough light that I had to use a graduated neutral density filter, which actually made it a lot easier because it's just a lot less mental math to do to balance it all out. But then I exposed another sheet of film when it was a bit more balanced again, just kind of a soft afterglow sort of light on everything. And I also exposed a sheet of Delta 100 black and white film. Not that I expect it to be much of anything because it's kind of a low contrast at that point, but just to give me some practice developing the film. But it was a pretty good show. And just as I was mentioning earlier, there are those times here in Death Valley when the clouds really build in a lot at sunset. And sometimes it just snuffs out the light and that's that. But sometimes also right when you get to that last little bit, the clouds really start to dissipate. And that's what happened today. So I have no clue what to expect. There are some parts about the composition I feel a little weird about. I hope I metered it pretty well for the exposure, but what's done is done. And I have one more film holder filled with 2 sheets of Provia. And I'm just going to sit on this scene for a little while. I don't expect these clouds to light up, but if they do, I could expose another sheet of film. And one thing I did before coming out here, because I hiked probably about a mile or so from where my car is, and by the time I get all this packed up, it's going to be full on dark. But I took one of my headlamps and put it in the blinking red light mode, and I put it on the side of my 4Runner over there. So I already see a little red blinking light over there to guide me back to it. Otherwise, I'll use my GPS to find my way back. But I think just using a little blinky dot will be a little easier. But definitely a lovely evening out here in Death Valley. And we'll see what happens with this light. But I suspect I'll be packing things up, heading back to camp, and get myself a really tasty dinner. It was a pretty good day. If you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know the significance of this song, but more on that in just a moment. I returned to my Forerunner once more under the watchful eye of a nearly full moon, guided by a small red dot over a mile away. I had a good feeling about the photo of the canyon, but didn't know what to think of my composition for the evening subject. My photo of the canyon turned out great. I'm satisfied with the composition, and thankfully I threaded the needle with this exposure on Fuji Provia 100 transparency film. Truth be told, I haven't even scanned the version on color negative film. I have all the detail I need on Provia. This photo very much captures the feeling of being there, and the light is absolutely beautiful. And while at first I had reservations about the composition of my second photo, this sheet of film with both the foreground and mountains illuminated captures everything I had hoped from this location. The depth of field is tricky, though thankfully a graduated neutral density filter wasn't necessary. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution through PayPal or by joining my Patreon helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorne.com/donate. I also have prints, eBooks, and my annual print portfolios available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.